Listen, the practice of breaking up families is not America's fault. It's the immigrants' fault. If you're here illegally, guess what? Your family is at risk of being broken up because that is what happens in a law-abiding society.
Yeah, I agree. But some people would argue that it's not Christian-like to have...
Hold on. It is actually very biblical to enforce the law, as repeated throughout the Bible. The Pope...
If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.
If you're happy and you know it, and you really want to show it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.
If you're happy and you know it, stomp your feet. If you're happy and you know it,
stomp your feet. If you're happy and you know it, and you really want to show it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Keep it loud. Why are you slowing down?
A policeman just wants to talk to Mommy, honey.
Are we in trouble?
No, of course not, no. It'll be over in a second, I promise.
Hi there. Could you please turn off your music?
Sure.
Code P45.
Roger that.
Do you know why I'm stopping you?
No? With us speeding?
52 miles an hour on a 40 zone.
I'm sorry, I didn't notice. We're late for a birthday party, and I guess I just got distracted by the speed for a moment.
License and insurance, please.
Yeah, sure. Listen, I didn't see any of those speed limit signs, so you think you can just let us go with a warning? I promise I'm not going to speed again.
Your insurance expired last month, ma'am.
Well, that's weird. I paid the renewal. I just guess I forgot to put it in the car.
Can you please step out of the car?
What for?
I'm just following procedures. Step out of the car, ma'am.
But why? What did I do?
You were driving over the speed limit with a child on board and expired insurance. Step out of the car.
Are you serious? You're treating me like I'm a criminal. Couldn't you focus your attention on real criminals, like all the illegal aliens in this area?
ICE is doing that, but they're no more criminal than you are.
What?
Illegal entry is also a misdemeanor, just like your speeding violation today.
Oh, no. This is wrong.
What would be wrong is for us not to enforce the law equally. Step out of the car now.
You called for backup? What the hell is going on?
Ma'am, you better step out of the car right now unless you want me to do it by force.
Mommy, what's happening?
It's okay, sweetheart. You just stay in the car, okay?
You need help?
I got it. Put your hands on the car. I need to pat you down. Are you carrying any weapons or sharp objects?
No, God, this is crazy.
Spread your legs.
Are you detaining me?
Yes, I am. It's part of our zero tolerance policy against all lawbreakers. Put your hands behind your back.
Oh, so now you're treating me as if I'm an illegal.
You are an illegal driver. And it's not the first time you've been caught speeding. I checked your record.
Okay, speeding is not the same as those illegals crossing the border.
No, it's not. You're breaking the law to save a few minutes. They're breaking the law to save their lives.
Mommy!
Who's the child?
She's my daughter.
Do you have her birth certificate as proof?
No, not right now.
Just make sure that somebody brings that to court, okay? I'll take care of her now.
Wait, what do you mean?
What is your name?
Oh,
Hope. Okay, I need to take you with me, okay?
I want my mommy.
Not now, later. Okay, let's go.
Mommy!
No?
Mommy.
No.
Right here, baby. Right here, baby.
You gotta come
Wait,
with
no,
me.
where are you taking her?
You gotta come with
Please don't do that.
She'll be fine, okay? It'll all be resolved in court.
No, where is he taking her? He can't take her. She's just 5 years old. Look, I can go home. I'll get that birth certificate, but that's what you need to see. Please, you can't take
You
my
are being detained for breaking the law.
Please, God, no.
No, you gotta come with me.
Mother, you can't do me all alone. Just got her, Mother. Oh, God. No, I'm not.
I'm sorry sorry, ma'am.
No, but why does he have to take her away?
Because children cannot be held at an adult detention center. You must go to court before you're given a chance to reunite with your daughter.
No.
Let's go.
Well, when will that be?
I don't know, maybe a month?
A month?
Well, we're processing a lot of illegal drivers right now, so there is a backup.
No, please.
Okay,
Please.
let's...
Mommy! Mommy!
She's my baby. She's my child. You can't... Mom is right here, please. I know, God, please. Please, you gotta help me. You gotta help me. Is there anything I can do to change this? Anything at all?
Yes! Wake up!
Mommy!
Great to meet you.
Likewise, Kim. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Loved your video. It's doing
It is. Definitely is kind of going viral in a way, and it's thanks to you and people like you that really care and want to share it, and that's obviously the opportunity for me to come and share more about why I made the video or all of that.
Can you tell me like who you are and maybe more about you a little bit and how you got into this?
Well, my name is Jesus. I am originally from Spain. I have traveled a lot. I think that traveling has been something that has informed me as a human being and is giving me a very wide perspective that perhaps not everybody has that fortune. Kind of going back to my origins, I was myself at one point an undocumented immigrant. When I was a teenager, I went from Spain to France. And at that time, that was not legit. It was not like I had the documents. And I did work in France. And the reason I did that, it was to be able to have enough money to pay for my education. So I have had that experience of being in a country working without papers. It was not so uncommon, and I think a lot of people would agree that there has been societies that understand that these things have been happening, and in a way, we are contributing with our labor to the local economy. By and large, most people would know that we are doing what we're supposed to be doing to help and to provide a service, and therefore, I don't think that there was the fear, the animosity that the fear on the part of the immigrants or the animosity on the part of, in that case, the people of France. And, interesting enough, when I came back to Spain, my goal was to work for world peace. I had this topic idea about the world. We can all get along fine and we can find world peace. And unfortunately, at the time in Spain, I couldn't pursue that because for me to be diplomatic, I first had to do the military service. So how I wanted to work for world peace is I can do a diploma career, study at the university, and join the diplomatic school, and then eventually work for, I don't know, UNICEF or UNESCO or United Nations in some capacity. But unfortunately, because I hadn't done the military service, I couldn't do that. And the reason I I didn't want to do the military services because for me it didn't make sense. If I want to work for world peace, why would I want to join the military service and prepare myself for war? It was a blessing in disguise because in a way at that time I was very interested in spirituality, and I looked at all the spiritual masters from all walks of life. I'm thinking about Jesus and Buddha and Krishna and
Oh,
Muhammad.
that's so cool. That's
And
cool.
what I realized is that they were all storytellers. And I realized, wow, this is so cool, because that's what actually inspired me to become a filmmaker. The fact that I could tell stories that at some level could awaken our compassion, our love for one another.
So
And
emotional it was. The video, it was perfect.
so I ended up, basically joining the arts, if you will, and looking into how to be self-expressed through filmmaking. And I did some acting, and that took me to different places. And eventually, I was in South America. I actually did some work over there as an actor. And finally, I came to the U.S. roughly about 20 years ago. And when I came to the U.S., of course, I came without documents.
What the people don't get is they cannot seem to put themselves in the place of the other. The empathy is like, and so this video was just perfect because it made you live it. And that's what they have to do. They almost have to live it to get it. So not everybody, but a lot.
I really, really appreciate it. I made a good effort as a filmmaker to make sure that the Trump supporter in the film was portrayed in a likable manner. And if you look at the film, you could see a good, likable Christian mom. She's not, she's opinionated, surely, and expresses her opinions clearly to the police when this happens. But the reason that the video works is because we care enough about her to suffer with her what it would be the loss of a son or a daughter in a situation like this. And to the extent that we can do that, we can relate and we can have that compassion. So I'd say that, yes, it is very important when we are making stories, when we're making attempts to increase our empathy or our compassion for others, to make sure that we go beyond this label of good and bad, right and wrong, that we portray human beings, people, and tell stories that help us to relate to one another. So I have done other films, and most of them, it's about that. It's about put yourself in other people's shoes. And when we do that, if we do it effectively, I think you are right. I think it does help us to let go of our judgments of others and somehow increase our empathy or our compassion towards them.
Wow, that is absolutely beautiful. I know personally in my life, over the years I've kind of struggled with that, because some of the people in what they're doing in the United States, normally I pride myself in somebody who can relate to anything, anyone. I don't get it. I don't understand, and I want to understand, and it's just eating me up.
I relate to that feeling and to that frustration myself, for sure. And obviously it's very apparent nowadays with our politics and our, I have to tell you that unfortunately we live in a culture where, specifically with our current president, where somehow we are working with this rhetoric of finding ways to divide ourselves further. And at the end of the day, I feel that people are very righteous in their position and are very fast in making somebody else wrong. So unfortunately, we're scapegoating immigrants for problems that are not related to what they bring. They crime to us. They don't bring problems to us. This is something that is out of politics, if you will. And it is unfortunate, but I can see that a lot of people are very defensive of the president and will say that what he's doing is right based on their unfortunate misbelief that these immigrants are criminals. And, one of the things I do in the movie is precisely talk about it. No, I mean, illegal entry and illegal stay, those are misdemeanors. they are not felonies.
Right,
For
right.
to call them criminals, it's like, if we're going to call ourselves criminals, everybody should be a criminal, because
It's made the word
every one of
criminal.
us, at one point or another, have violated the law.
Yeah,
Or
he
eventually
made it a
it's
generic term. Yeah, like
correct. So people say, well, let's be tough on the criminals, and therefore we look at these poor immigrants as the criminals, and then we put all that energy toward against them, because I don't know, seemingly it's easy for the president and a lot of his constituency to feel victims of them, when we know that the problems that we have in America are not related to them at all. If anything, what we know, and these are the facts, is our crime rate has diminished. In other words, more immigrants coming, less crime in America, and our economic productivity has increased. Not maybe the wages, but the productivity. Certainly, there are companies and corporations that are taking advantage of these people that are coming and providing, jobs, or are providing services for low wages that are necessary for our economy to be as healthy as it is. We all like to go and buy the vegetables affordable at the market.
right.
We all like to have people that we can rely on, maybe as a nanny, or maybe taking care of our gardens, so that we can then pay them whatever, $15, so that we can then get $25 an hour in our job. So it makes us more productive, not just the corporations, but us individually. So we know that economically they are very helpful to us. Fortunately, I think more in the Republican Party, there is this idea of, how I get votes is by being tough on crime. So if we make them criminals and we want to be tough on crime, yeah, let's just round them up and, deport them. It is, of course, very unfortunate, and it's not based on facts, but I'm saying that ideologically, it's, easy to understand that sometimes when you have this type of rhetoric and you don't have a lot of people that have their actual facts, you can get people that all of a sudden are against immigrants and don't have any empathy, because they sometimes don't understand.
They're going based on misinformation. They push back and don't want the truth because they have made their decision based on false information. But the thing I loved about the video was you didn't make it like this lady was some evil, horrible person. You made it real, like she was a human who truly believed her false information.
Well, I tell you why, because I have to tell you that spiritual masters that I told you influenced me becoming a filmmaker are also influencing me in that way of storytelling. I don't focus on making people wrong. I don't focus on making people bad, because I don't believe that that's the issue. And if you look at all the effective change makers in our history, whether you look at Mahatma Gandhi or you look at Martin Luther King, they focus on policies. They don't focus on making people wrong. They focus on making sure that we stand for what is right and get rid of the policies that are on our way to do so. Martin Luther King was well known for encouraging people in the protests not to have anger towards the policemen, because the policemen were just people like themselves, and understand that he was fighting against the policies of oppression. So I think that for us as progressives, if you will, it's very important that we attain that level of maturity, because ultimately that's the only way that I feel we can eventually evolve as a society.
The continuum is not a straight line. It's full circle. You can have great intentions, but when they become out of control, like blaming every single person, then you're just as bad as the other side.
You're right. We become like them. When we make people wrong and we have that hatred and that anger towards them, then we are becoming the same thing that we're criticizing, right?
Easy to do, though.
So that doesn't help. And therefore, I honestly think that it is very important for us to see everything within the context of a society that is evolving. Surely we had Obama, and this is a response to Obama that came in ways that were surprising to most of us living in maybe big cities, but people in rural area, that they saw changes happening too fast. And it is important for us to, quite frankly, listen and understand. And obviously, our perspective is very different, but we need to listen and understand them so that we really know what is the most effective way to create change in society. And we know that fighting with each other is not the way. This is going to create further polarization. And therefore, we do need to reach out to the other side and hear where they are at. I mean, one of the beautiful things about my film is that it has awakened a lot of people that are Trump supporters into saying a lot of things, some of them pretty insulting, to be honest with you.
Oh.
But it has given me a window to understanding their mentality. And, you know, I was telling you about the immigrants. So their biggest fear, which to me I was not even aware of, is that apparently the fear is that these immigrants coming here are people that are going to vote for Democrats. And that's what they are scared about.
Mm-hmm.
But these immigrants, although we know that immigrants without documents cannot, vote, we know.
Right.
But in mind, somehow, the idea is that these immigrants are going to completely change American society so much, and they're going to vote for radical Democrats, and therefore their culture or the way of looking at society is going to be gone. And, I mean, I think that we need to have a level of understanding of where they're coming from. And I think we can all relate that sometimes when things are changing really fast, we can all be a little bit unnerved by that, a little bit stressed about what's going on. If we happen to be white, I guess, and you see that there are more brown people, all of a sudden you feel like, okay, what's going to happen to me? So there are certain things, but how we meet those fears is not by judging them, by telling them that they are wrong, by being angry at them, but by having greater understanding where they come from and hopefully reaching them in a way that is more evolved so that they can understand that those fears don't need to be so, that this is a democracy, that the rule of law is respected, and that immigrants by and large are good people and therefore are not coming here to take anything away from you, and that there is no data that proves that they are commit more crimes than we do. There's no data that they are on welfare because they cannot be on welfare when they are undocumented, and all those fears that are not factual, but that they seem to have. So we have to understand them, and instead of judging them, my goal is to, let me show you the other side of the coin. That's what this movie shows. Imagine that we would do the zero tolerance policy, and since nobody's above the law, we would do it for everyone that is involved in a misdemeanor. How would that feel? Mm-hmm. And that's what the American nightmare would be. Of course, that's not happening, but I wanted to show that, hoping that then people could awaken to, we do need to find common sense solutions to this immigration crisis that are good for America and immigrants alike. There's no such a thing as us or them. All of us can find good common sense solutions that work for everyone.
You're really a brilliant filmmaker. I was so moved by it, and it just was exactly spot on. What people need to say is to feel it, to live it a little. Think, wow. And to imagine. We like to demonize and dehumanize so much because it makes it easy for us to not care, because the world is really sad sometimes and some people cannot take it, so they just push it away. And we have to be strong as white people. We have to say, I'm going to fight this, and I'm going to care, and I'm going to deal with the emotions of caring.
For me, one thing that is key, and I'll share this with you because this is important, is to distinguish between what is the essence and what is that we are and what is that we have. Okay? And we are human beings. What we have is we have a nationality, we have a political belief, we have a different culture. That's fine. But those things can change. More fundamental than being Americans and being Mexicans or being Guatemalans is the fact that we're human beings. At a more fundamental level, we are all human beings. So we need to, we have great challenges ahead of us, and quite frankly, challenges that the new generation is inheriting. I'm talking about immigration, but I'm also talking about climate change and others that are similar. And I think it's very important that we look at it as, we cannot look at it, we Americans, it's like we human beings. We have challenges in this world. We're all powerfully interconnected. And we have to talk to one another. We have to listen to one another, and we have to find good, common sense, humane solutions to our challenges instead of getting caught in this tribalism or nationalism, I guess, in this particular case of I'm American and, and I have to defend my border and, not understand that just being born in America is a privilege. And, because we have that privilege of being born in a country that is rich, it is our responsibility. I'm not saying feel guilty about it. It's the opportunity that is given to you to make a difference. And that's what is missing in this equation. And therefore, that's why I think traveling could help. But I'm hopeful. I am. I think that right now, social media is making this problem even worse because, as you know, social media is filtering content. So it's going to give you what you believe. All the information is just going to be on that end. I love about the American Nightmare Film.com, where you can see the movie, that it gives you an opportunity to share. And I have a lot of people that are Trump supporters sharing opinions. And of course, there is a lot of all kinds of things going on. But you know what? It's a window into seeing two different perspectives. And I love that. I love that because we need that. And sometimes social media is not giving us that. It's filtering what we want to hear and giving us all of that. And therefore, creating a further disconnect with people that have different opinions or different beliefs. If you look at it, there are two main energies in the world. The energy of love that brings us together and makes us all one, and the energy of fear that separates us, right? And is the energy of ego, if you will, that has to create these distinctions and separations.
Right.
But, we love what we know and we fear what we don't know. But if we would know what we don't know, we will love it as well. So exactly. It is, it's a matter of getting to know each other. Sometimes storytelling gives you that opportunity. You have seen American Nightmare, which is this short film, but I have a feature film, and it's about an immigrant, and it's called Not Turning Back. It's distributed. It has already been released and it's been sold to different countries, but I have made other short films and other feature films. And thank you. And, it's the story of an immigrant. And I think that sometimes that's what we need. Like, it's similar in that we need to put ourselves in somebody else's shoes. I'm an independent filmmaker because I don't like precisely the typical formulaic stories that you sometimes get from Hollywood where there is good people and bad people, right and wrong. And
everybody loves the extremes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, and it can be entertaining, but really it's not good for our culture. What we need is more stories that tell us about one another and actually show us that in essence we're the same. We're one. We are not only powerfully interconnected, but we're one. And this is not something I'm saying from a spiritual perspective. This is something that science is showing us.
Absolutely.
Core level, we are energy, and that is the energy that we share with everyone. So the fact that we see ourselves different, the fact that we see others separated from us, it's kind of like an illusion in a way. Now we know that. It's like when people in the 13th century, they thought that the earth was flat because that's what they saw. So when you see people that are different than you do, then you're fearful because you don't know them, and therefore you think that there is something bad or wrong maybe. And so we do need to get to know each other to realize that in essence we are all pretty much the same. We're all human beings. We're trying to do our best. We do not ask ourselves, why are they coming here? There is somehow the belief that they come here because illegally, and most people say, why don't they come legal? As if that is a possibility, like coming here legally, it's possible. They just have to wait and apply, and somehow they're going to get papers and come here legally. And also not to realize the desperation that is present in these families when they make this choice. In other words, no one wants to leave their country, their family, their culture, their language, to go to another country just because. And they definitely don't do it because of welfare, because they cannot get welfare. Those are the myths that exist. We need to make sure that we work in letting go of those myths and work with facts. So for me, what's important as a humanitarian is precisely that we focus, instead of reacting, which is what we're doing, we're reacting to these people. We look at them, and I'm not telling you and me, but I'm just talking more about a lot of people, 40%, because, we can talk about Trump, but the reality is Trump is supported by maybe around 40% of the population, and that's really what we need to be aware of.
It's a result of people.
Correct, is a result. So 40% of people look at them they are doing something illegal. Therefore, it's something wrong. Therefore, it's something bad. We need to punish them, and we have to get them out, and they are dangerous. So that's how we look at it from a legal frame. And of course,
help them. How about just help them? It's like
that legal frame, help. We call them illegal, but of course, we're going to call them illegal. I make the point: if you are going to call them illegals because they have done a misdemeanor, then we're all illegals, right? Look at
cross the road without the signal before.
and by the way, starting with President Trump, he has hired undocumented immigrants in numerous occasions.
Absolutely.
And that's a misdemeanor. From a legal perspective, it's very questionable, again, that we would call them illegals, and we would use those words that are criminalizing them when this is a misdemeanor.
It's a way to villainize.
Beyond that, I think we have to use a different frame, and that's the humanitarian frame. And from that frame, instead of reacting to somebody has done something wrong and reacting with animosity or with fear or with anger, we look at why did they come here? We ask ourselves that question. We're all human beings, right? Why did they come here? And then we realize that it's because economic inequality, and it's because of despair. And in this case, people coming from Guatemala, from El Salvador, from Honduras, is because really life-threatening violence that they're facing. And it's a violence that we somehow are co-creators of that violence, even though we are not even aware of.
We've been a part of it.
Policies in the past have helped to empower people like the current president of Honduras.
Exactly. People don't know their history here.
Yeah.
They don't know the histories.
And by the way, one of the things we do, we talk about gang members and all that. Well, gang members are formed in the U.S., right? And what we do is we detain them, and then we actually send them back home. When they go to Honduras, they don't have police force that enforces law. There is impunity. So what are they going to do? They're going to terrorize the people in their homeland now. And by the way, they don't buy guns in Honduras, in Guatemala, or Mexico. They buy the guns here. So they come, they sell the drugs here because the market is here. They buy the guns here. They go to their homeland and they terrorize the local population. And because there is impunity for crime, these families are asked for money. If they have a business, that they have to pay money to the people.
It's kind of like a vicious cycle, kind of.
What I'm saying is, what we need is, once we understand the root cause of why they are coming here, then we can realize that what we need is to stop focusing so much on failed domestic policies like deportation or building a wall, and focus on good, common sense foreign policies, which means working with our neighboring countries to help them in solving their problems back home, so that their own population doesn't have to be so desperate to come here seeking survival.
That is absolutely, when I think of, when I try to present stuff, exactly what you're saying, I say, I tell to the folks that I have as an audience, what would it take for you? How desperate would you personally have to be to walk 3,000 miles with your precious child, leave everything behind, everything you've ever known, and walk somewhere with nothing but your child and I go, think about exactly what would that take for you? And I try to, because the only thing we know that educates people is traveling, which Americans don't usually do too much of in general, and the education, the anti-bigotry, anti-racism, education works. But unfortunately, our government from top down is not willing to. It's not in their best interest. But
I think our education can improve, and I think, like I said, us as progressives, us as people that we had that opportunity to have more information and perhaps be more compassionate, because I look at that as how lucky we are that we can have that compassion. Not everybody does. For us to reach out to others, we need to come with that same level of compassion so that eventually they can hear us. I mean, one of the beautiful things that I'm proud of is that in making this film, I have received a lot of comments. And a lot of those comments, of course, are very negative because they come from Trump supporters that have reacted very negatively.
They don't have the information.
I make an effort. If you look at my page, American Nightmare Film on Facebook, I make an effort to respond to as much as I can to each single one of them, and to do it from a place of love.
So
And to
educate.
do, yeah, because at the end of the day, my message is simple. My message is really love others as you love yourself. It's really the message that is the Christian message. As you know, in the film, I work with the Christian theme, and how somehow we even have found justification for this on Christianity. Listen, if we go to the core message of Jesus, and for that, by that I mean the core message of all the spiritual masters, you realize that is love. Love others as you love yourself. And, if we apply that simply, that means that we could awaken to our common humanity, and that we can somehow, be able to love even people that are, and I say this sounds very controversial, but even Trump supporters, because I don't see them as my enemies. I don't see them as, even Trump for that matter. Listen, they have a different ideology, okay? But I know that what is going to allow me to reach them is going to be love, and not, judgment, no hate, not animosity. So as an educator, I think we need to be aware that how we can have others to listen to us, not the people that are already agreeing with us, but people that disagree, is but coming from love, coming from, hey, let's talk, let's have a conversation, let's talk about what unites us, and let's see how that which unites us can unite us with other people around the world, and we can see that we, at the end of the day, want the same thing. Maybe your ideology is different than mine, and I get it, but that's what I said. That's something you have. That's not what we are. It's sad that we cannot get along because you are a Democrat and you are a Republican. Those are things that we have, ideologies that can change. But for those things to change, we need to reach out to one another from a place of love. And so now that we have that compassion towards the immigrant children, I think it's important that we do our best to have it for all beings, regardless, even for our president. And I know that sounds really controversial.
You know what?
But
Can I tell you something?
the one thing is his ideology, which of course we're gonna, make sure that we do everything we can to overcome those policies, and to stand against the policies of hate and separation, and but at the same time, without forgetting that people change, and that we need to look at people as human beings, no matter who they are, no matter where they come from, and extend that level of humanity to every single being, and not just to the immigrants in this case, talking about some progressives that are so caught in their ideology that unfortunately I think are creating further separation. So we all need to be aware of that as educators, specifically, to reach out to people that are not thinking like us, in a way that would allow us to be successful.
Well, it has to be that way, or we'll always stay divided. I think one of the things that shocks me a lot is people say to me, if Trump was laying on a cliff holding on, would you save him? And I'm like, of course I would. And they're like, oh, well, I wouldn't. I said, well, but then that's inhumane. Of course I would. I wouldn't even, people, it's just so easy to get so angry, and they laugh at me. They're like, oh, you're weird. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm not going to let him set my standards of inhumanity. I just look at the people like, maybe this is kind of naive, but I think maybe if I could just teach them, like maybe they don't understand that people who come over without papers actually statistically are better citizens. Better. Maybe if they just don't know that, maybe if I just taught them that. And then it is just so hard because so many people, we've let this go for so long in America. We have not faced our issues. So people just, they don't want to hear it. They just, it's really tough. But I've seen miracles. I have seen people come into some of my groups and they're like, I'm just looking, I'm not even going to stay. And we start talking and they're like, wow, you're not as bad as you're not as mean. Wow. You kind of remind me of my, it's like all of a sudden they're getting this connection, and it's a long, long learning curve. White supremacy is strong. It's strong, but it is. It can happen.
The bias that I think for most people is unconscious. In other words, I think that it's difficult for anybody to recognize I'm a racist.
Right.
And quite frankly, the bias exists among all of us, maybe of different
Everybody has implicit bias, of course.
All of us have implicit bias. So it is important for us to start looking at ourselves. And, the more change that we can do is the change that we can do within. So I think for us to precisely, instead of feeling victims, okay, like we see right now, some people feel the victims of the immigrants that are here, precisely just to take responsibility and to look at what is it that I can change within me so that I don't have this bias against anyone, so that I can be just more evolved, more loving, and get along with everyone. As educators, I think that's an important responsibility to reach out to a wide audience. And
Yes, and that's all that I find myself struggling with that a lot with my videos, because I find myself, as things have been progressing, just how can they do this? How can and I have to really, really, like, talking to you is just inspirational, because you just get it, and you get it so much that it's like you're not angry, you just want to educate and find a solution and bring together people, and that's what's needed. But I think there's certain people that just won't, like, some people want to be lifelong learners, and they will change and grow their whole life. And then there's some people like, this is just how I am. And some people truly cannot be reached. They are not ready.
And you know what? If that's the case, there's nothing we can do and just accept that. Accept that's where we are. This is what's going on, and it's part of the process. We all have different journeys and different paces of changing, and I don't know. I mean, different karma. You can
You have so much wisdom. You really do.
But I mean, accepting things as they are. It's important, because for us to be filled with anger and filled with anxiety and filled with, it's not going to help anyone. That's the key element. The old activism based on protest has not been as effective, or is not being as effective now as it could. And the reason is because it's coming from anger and it's not coming from love. So there is a distinction between having a positionality against somebody and making a stand for something. So I stand for life, I stand for justice, I stand for love, I stand for that which unites us, but I stay away from having a positionality against Republicans or Trump supporters or anything that creates further separation. And I think it's kind of it seems like a nuance, but if we engage in activism coming from love for those children, love for those families, love for the fact that we all want, that we all deserve to find good common sense solutions that are good for everyone, and that it is possible, we stand for that, then we will get caught in all this anger that is not only not helping us in reaching out to others, but ultimately it's making us miserable. And as you very well know, it's creating, separation, not just between Republicans and Democrats. I mean, sometimes it's happening in relationships at home. People have different.
Absolutely.
So coming, thank you for being honest about it. But it's just about engaging whatever we do out of love for that what we do, that what we stand for, as opposed to out of hate for the oppressor. It's a different approach, and I think the new activism needs to be that evolved for it to be more successful than the old activism.
I think, yeah, absolutely. And when I end up trying to educate somebody, I think, I go by angry soccer mom. I'm not really angry. I'm just desperately, like, I feel betrayed by my fellow humans, and it really because.
Of course, I'm talking in a more
generic,
spiritual, philosophical way, if you will. But I mean, I'd say Angry Soccer Mom is a wonderful, quick for attention. So I think it works in you getting people that, okay, I want to hear, right?
Yeah. That's the only reason I did it. My kids don't play soccer.
I love the tagline. And I have to tell you, we have to give it to Donald Trump. He's very good at taglines. He's very good at marketing. He's very good at branding. And that's why he's branding people in different ways.
He knows how to brand people. He says it over and over and over.
It is this, animosity. So we need to look beyond that. We need to look at him. Okay, this is what he's doing. Okay, you can do that, but we're not gonna, because he feeds out of us getting, angry about it.
Yeah.
And, enough is enough. Okay, you do your thing. That's fine. Time will pass and this will be gone. And we're not going to be reacting so much. You're just caught in your own ego land and having your own narcissistic perspective. And
Yeah.
God bless you, but we're just not going to engage. And we still will do what we need to do, which is stand firm for human rights
People seem to be
for everyone.
trying to work around him. They really do.
Yeah.
What do you say to somebody who says, well, they're going to all get welfare and I don't have welfare? What do you say to the, struggling white person? They say, we don't want those immigrants because they're going to get welfare. I know it. How do you teach them? If you don't mind me asking.
No, of course. And well, the first thing is that surely you need to create a listening for us to be able to teach. Maybe teaching is not the right word, because I think sometimes we talk about teaching, there is an implication we know you, and that type of arrogant thing is not going to help anybody to listen to us. So the first thing I think is to create, okay, I see where you're coming from. I understand that's where you're at. If you don't mind, let me share some facts coming from our government that is headed by Donald Trump. So that I'm not sharing facts coming from, I share, this is our government sharing facts with us. And quite frankly, if you go to AmericanNightmareFilm.com, because I made this short film, but ultimately I wanted to use it as a platform for educational purposes. And that's why, of course, you and I are talking right now. So this website, AmericanNightmareFilm.com, gives you a particular link to facts. And when you look for facts, you have 10 different articles. And each one of them is very thoroughly documented by, facts coming from our own government. And, just kind of engage in a conversation. I mean, some people will be completely caught in their own mind and they don't want to listen, and that's what it is. But if we don't come from the place, I'm superior, I know better than you do, you're wrong and I'm right, or arrogant or whatever, if we don't come from that attitude, we come from that attitude of, listen, I respect you, I understand where you're coming from, fair enough. How about if we look at this information and look at it and what you have to say and engage in a conversation that way? I have done that. I mean, I have, tell people, there are many solutions that we can have that are so amazingly powerful and so more humane. Imagine, as an example, when you start to think out of the box, imagine that instead of, and I tell people that, Trump supporters, imagine that instead of condemning people that are here without documents, making them wrong, separating families, which by the way is costing us a lot of money, building these jails and breaking these families apart and sending them back home. It's not like, and by the way, it's never possible to deport 11 million people. Not only would ruin our economy, but it's just impossible. We don't have the finances and the money to do it. And we complete violation of rights. So we know that. But anyway, what about this? What about if we give them a permit to work here? They're here, they're contributing, the ones that don't have a criminal record. And then we have agreements with other foreign countries. For example, imagine an agreement by which when they send money back to Honduras or to Salvador or to Mexico using Western Union, MoneyGram, a percentage of that, let's say 5% of the money, ought to be utilized to support local small entrepreneurs that are creating jobs back home. So now we are letting them here help the people back home so they don't have to come here.
To stop the cycle of coming here because we're not helping. Oh, that's fantastic.
And that just is an idea. Instead of making them wrong, how about if we find ways in which we can help them become the solution to their problems back home? And by the same token, the corporations that have benefited so much from the workforce that is so affordable, first of all, there would be a lot of industries right now in the US that would be now in China and Vietnam and other countries if they would have not had the access to low wage, workforce that is wanting to pay low wages, which would affect a lot of Americans that are, getting the high wages in those industries. Okay,
we have no food and people don't understand. These are really not jobs that a lot of white people will do, and if they say they will, they're lying because they don't do them,
And but here's, the reality is that wages have been somehow stagnant, but our productivity has increased twofold. Like you said, we know that they are a complementary workforce. They come here to do jobs that Americans don't want to do. I don't have a doubt Americans want to go pick up fruit for $20 an hour, but I know for a fact they don't want to do it for $8 an hour. I know that for a fact because around us right now, that a lot of fruit is not being picked up because they are scared about this country, the government coming and rounding them up and deporting them, and our fruit is going to waste. So
our country needs the additional workforce. We need that. If we aren't going to do it, we need that. They play an essential role in people just don't understand that. They really aren't. I actually did an interview and they said they're taking our jobs, and I said, what particular job would that be? And they're like, well, they are. And I said, well, what, tell me more. Like, do you know people who have had their jobs displaced? And he's like, well, no, but it's like, I said, oh, okay, well, I'm just curious because so it's really hard. It's really, really
sometimes hard. What I do is I tell them, okay, so when was the last crisis that we had in this country, like, in terms of unemployment going up, and and they say, well, back in 2008. Oh yeah, and what kind of crisis was that? Was it because a lot of immigrants were coming here? No, it was a financial crisis. Well, yeah, there you go. So immigrants have not created any crisis. We do have humanitarian crisis, unfortunately, right now at the border of our own making in many ways.
We did that though.
Lack of better policy, and we need to be aware of that. We don't need a wall of prejudice to separate us from Mexico. We need I like to say, a bridge of understanding to awaken our common humanity. What we need is really to understand that instead of meeting with, I'm sorry to say this, but I'm going to be political, so much with Putin and North Korea, how about if we meet with the presidents of El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala?
What can we do? So what can we do?
A plan like we did with Europe, a Marshall Plan to help them so that now we develop that, which is good for us, our economy, because we kind of have new consumers over there, and give them the opportunity to stay in their homeland safely, which is what they don't have right now, what they're really desperately asking for.
Absolutely. And what I love about what you're saying is, it sounds like you're saying, let's, instead of being black and white, you're either bad or good, let's be creative and come up with, let's delve into and analyze. There are solutions. There are creative solutions that we can use that are win-win, and that they meet in the middle. And that's what I never really quite understood. Why we can't, I know we are compelled as humans, evolutionarily speaking, to relate better to extremes. But it's not healthy for our society. It's not a very healthy thing, for our society to do that. So.
Oh, because for us to find solutions, we need to look at the root cause of the problems. And we are not doing that. We are reacting. How are we reacting? By building jails, by building a wall, by doing things that are not going to deter them from coming. Why is not going to deter them from coming? As we can see, simply because when you are desperate, you will do whatever it takes to leave that society. Absolutely. Do whatever it takes. And you build a wall, you're going to go around the wall.
Over, yes.
But one thing we do know, though, who is going to benefit with the wall? Honestly, the smugglers. Why? Because now the decent people that before had a chance to maybe make it through, now they have to deal with the smugglers. They're going to get a lot of money to make sure that you go to the other side. And they have the means to do so. Mm-hmm. Between 1990 and roughly 2007, the amount of money that we put into building a wall and having the Border Patrol do their job during that time, triple. During those years, the amount of money that we put, taxpayer money, triple. During that same amount of time, the amount of people that crossed the border doubled.
So
Hold on. How is it possible by putting more money and more people are coming through? Now, President Trump is realizing that I'm doing all these things to deter, and it's not working.
Because more people are coming now.
And now we have the facts, and I'll share with you.
Yeah, why are more people coming? I would love to hear.
Because we had the NAFTA NAFTA, National North America Free Trade Agreement, that was signed when Clinton was president. Basically, under that agreement, we did something that was interesting, I guess, global economy. We're going to have free exchange of goods between North America, between US and Mexico, right? By the way, Europe, you talk about the European, we have this thing. I was telling you how in the past when I went to France, I was an undocumented immigrant, not anymore, because we have a union. So what we did in our union, in our agreement is we're going to have free exchange of goods and people. Okay, so I can work in France, I can work in Germany, I can work in Italy, no problem. And we exchange goods. How we do it in Mexico is we're going to have free exchange of goods, but not people. Okay, fair enough. So now we have the North America Free Trade Agreement. So what happens is now they don't have tariffs to sell goods between our countries. But guess what? The huge agricultural corporations in the United States, I'm talking about, corn industry, beans industry, they're powerful, they make money, and they have powerful lobbyists in Congress.
Yeah.
And these lobbyists are telling our congressmen, hey, you gotta give subsidies to our farmers. Sounds very good. Help our farmers so they can do their job. They're not really small farmers, they are big corporations. It has happened in the oil industry. But because they are lobbyists, help our farmers, and then we can put money helping your campaign. The lobbyists are in politics, we know that. So now these corporations that are already making money are getting subsidies from the government. The corn industry, just to give an example, $10 million of subsidies from the government. And now they don't have tariffs to sell, the products in Mexico. So these huge American corporations went to Mexico and started to sell corn cheaper than the local farmers.
Wow.
So what do you think the 1.2 million of local farmers in Mexico did when they could not make a living anymore because of NAFTA? What do you think they did?
Moved.
They came here.
Yeah, moved.
Called them illegal aliens.
Yep. Yeah.
Some of them were lured by the not the smugglers, but the mafia, the drug dealers, and say, hey, listen, if you cannot do corn, maybe you can cultivate something different, and and out of survival, maybe some of them got into that other but the majority of them came to this country, and those are the people that were calling them illegal aliens. So one way I tell people is, how about if we use a different label that is more appropriate and that is more humanitarian nature, and we call them economic refugees? Because that's what they are. We have co-created the circumstances by which they were forced to leave their land and come to this country. So now, if you look at them as economic refugees, all of a sudden, there is a possibility with that change of label of you, instead of having so much animosity or fear, have more solidarity and
Words
love.
matter. Words
And that's
matter.
we need to understand. These are people that need our help. These are not people that need to be punished. They need our help. We all need to work together, individually and collectively, and as a countries, of course, internationally, to make sure that the conditions for them are not so horrible that they keep abandoning their homelands. And I can give you example after example. Right now, there is the dry corridor, which is a big problem affecting Guatemala. Their land cannot be cultivated anymore.
Right.
Why is that? Because of climate change. Who is polluting this planet? Who is walking away from the Paris Agreement? We are. And now when climate change is affecting their homeland and they are basically forced to leave their homeland and come here, are we going to call them illegal aliens and make them wrong and put them in jail? Is
Right,
that
they cannot win. We're not letting them win. We destroy. Part of the thing for me is the education component of people understanding our history has been a large, our historically what America's policies have very much added to people, having their countries destroyed with havoc. And we need to know our own history so we can say, oh. So a lot of the things I've done on this in the last couple months have been, do you understand some of our Cold War policies were detrimental to, we have a part in, we have some responsibility. And people are like, what? We're just Americans. We want to get it. No, they don't know enough to get it. Like, why? Why do you think they just all want to come here? Why?
It's our poor foreign policy that is in many ways responsible for this humanitarian crisis that we have at the border. And therefore, it's not going to be our failed domestic policies of separating people and deporting people that are not only hurting families, but ultimately is going to hurt our economy that is going to help. What is going to help is to look at our foreign policy, look at how we can engage with those countries in a different way so that we can eventually allow those people to remain in their homeland.
Like your idea was great, brilliant. Some of the two ideas that you just presented just now. I mean, it's either you're like the most brilliant person on the planet, or people aren't trying to come up with solutions. Because
well, I mean, I'm not. Well, first of all, I thank you so much, but obviously I care. I am a human rights activist, and I like to be informed. And I'm also, as I told you, a person that has traveled. I've lived in different countries. I consider myself a citizen of the world. I don't, I think this whole concept of nationalities is driving us nuts overall in the world. I'm not just talking about the U.S. I'm talking overall. We need to let go of that. We're all human beings. We are living together in this beautiful planet. We're exploring this planet in ways that is not sustainable. We need to look at that, and we need to find, how we are all, take all of us responsibility, how we are contributing to this society that is not as humane as it could be, or as sustainable as it could be if we're talking about climate change. So I think it's about us. I start with myself and what I can do on my end. And then as a country, we need to do that. What we cannot do is feel like we're the victims of others. We're the victims of illegal aliens by all, that's absurd. Not to mention that just the term illegal alien in and of itself is going to create animosity. I mean, illegal already carries in the mind that they are criminal when they are not, based on the fact that it's a misdemeanor. An alien already carries in the mind that they're invading us, right? That they come from, I don't know where.
Outer space or something, It's like,
that's why changing labels, I think it's effective, talking to them, okay, economic refugees. And, just looking at how we can humanize this situation so that we don't react from the place of fear and animosity, and we can respond with more love and compassion.
Absolutely. I'm very much into that. And I don't know if you've seen any of my videos, but a lot of the things I do are very basic. Like I say, well, I don't like euphemisms. I don't like them. The homeless. No, people who don't have anywhere to live and are on the street. Like I say, people, I never say slaves when I refer. I say people who were forced into, humans who were forced into a non-human status by being overpowered. And it takes a lot more words, but there is a kind of disconnect when we use these, illegal aliens. Oh, well, no, a mom and her little baby girl that she loves with all her heart. That's really who it is. But if we say illegals, well, what does that mean? I can't stand all these labels, and they matter. They really matter.
They should not be politically correct. I mean, to say somebody is illegal, there's no one illegal, because that's how do we dehumanize? There are actions that are illegal, but not people, okay? And if we're going to call that, then, like I said, we should start talking about the president being the first illegal, because he himself, leaving aside all the other implications, all the things that we know, has engaged in hiring undocumented immigrants. And that in itself is a misdemeanor. So if we're not illegal,
other things he's probably
no, we should start with the president. So again, I'm not advocating for that. I'm not advocating to getting.
No, I understand your point. You're using the example.
Advocating that he should not have the possibility of going to the, have a fair judicial process.
Absolutely.
But what I'm saying is, if we are going to have this attitude towards them, we should just examine how it would feel if it would happen to all of us.
Spirit of what you're saying.
By doing that, we can hopefully, like I said, awaken that common humanity,
Well, your video, I was thinking to myself that the video, the short video that you made that I saw was so powerful and just so professional and powerful. I thought to myself, this is every person in the U.S. needs to see this. They need to feel this, feel a little bit uncomfortable and connect it. Wow, what an analogy. Wow, because there is not a soul, even, the Mother Teresa of, somebody who never, ever does a thing wrong has probably jaywalked, has probably accidentally, done something. We don't have to demonize. One of the reasons I actually did my second interview was with a man who was the head of the Mississippi Aryan Brotherhood for years. He was one of the head people, and people were like, "Oh, how could you?" And I said, "Because I need to know."
Yes.
And we're really close friends now. He's an incredible man. He is.
Thank you for doing that, Kim. I think this is very important. We
and
need
people,
to.
they won't watch it.
Yeah.
And I said, "No, please. It's not what you think. Please watch it." He's a human being.
Yes.
He's a human being. And
we need to understand him, and we need to understand everyone. One of the things that I think is positive about Trump administration is the fact that they have engaged in having a criminal justice reform. That was very important. It's happening, and we need to let go of those labels of making people wrong and bad and evil. I think that what you are doing is the right approach. We need to establish those conversations with those people that we disagree, and only through those conversations we can at least treat each other with that level of humanity that we're expecting. Because at the end of the day, we all are going to have differences of opinions. But what separates us is not that we are different. What separates us is not that we have different political beliefs. What separates us is our inability to accept our differences, our inability to accept our different political beliefs. So we accept that there are others that have other different beliefs. It's okay. Like I said, that's what I say. It doesn't help for us to get. And that means that we can engage, we can have a conversation, we can all relate, we can all realize what unites us. And yet there will be things that in our thoughts are different. We have different beliefs, but not necessarily that needs to create the animosity, the polarization that is present in our country, especially in our political climate nowadays.
Our hatred is destroying our country. And I think I know what you mean. I think a lot of times I will meet somebody who, every once in a while, I'll meet a very special person in my life who will say, "No, I am completely against, those people." And I'll be like, "But I would never treat them inhumanely. I would never be disrespectful. Like, I don't believe what they're doing is right, or I think it maybe in the LGBTQ community, it's a choice. I know it's a choice, but I would never discriminate or hurt them." And that is called, that's meeting somebody in the middle. That's where you say, "I don't agree with you, but we're all humans." And to find that place, like, I don't understand what you're doing, and I can't say I respect it, but I respect you as a fellow human, and I would never harm you or wish anything. That's the difference. And that is a place where if we could just somehow get there and not live like humans. We are lucky to be humans because we don't have to instinctually react on our fear and we can think. We are lucky. We have this, cognitive ability. Yes, I'm afraid, but I know that's irrational because I know the facts. So I'm going to do something different. I'm not going to act on my terror. And that's what makes us human. And if we can somehow bring that out. And
I love that. Yeah.
You're afraid, but you're going to think about it anyway and work through it and dig deep to show people, like, this has nothing to do with immigration. This is about being a human. It's way beyond politics.
If you think about it, what we're talking about is really what we stand for. And what we're asking kindly is for us to have a president that will stand for American values, that will stand for our American Constitution, that will respect our American laws, that will abide by human rights, which are international. So, it's really, those are the things that I feel we need to focus on and that we need to unite. Because it's not about Trump, Republican, Democrat. It's about who we are as people and what America has been for the world. We have inspired other nations. to be the best that they can. We have become the land of the free. We have become the land of people that have a dream. We call it the American dream. My film is called The American Nightmare for a reason. We need to look at what we are making out of America, and how America is being perceived in other countries, and how our brand, for the lack of a better word, is now being diminished by all these policies that are making us somehow not friendly to the world, not friendly to others, not sympathetic to people. We have a lot of refugees in the world coming from countries that are torn apart by war, by famine, by extreme poverty, by life-threatening violence. We need to extend ourselves to them with solidarity. We cannot just think American first and be focused in we can be fine when others are not. That's not the case.
Exactly.
Imagine we're all in a ship. This is kind of an image that I have. We're all in a ship, and the ship is kind of moving down because there is maybe a hole in the back of the ship, and the ship is going down, and we happen to be on top of the ship. And maybe the people that are on the ship are trying to go to the front of the ship because that's the part of the ship that is not drowning. But we build a wall, and we push them, and we're looking at them, and they are going down, obviously, because the ship is going down. But if you think about it, it is a ship. Eventually, the whole ship will go down. That's how I see. We're all interconnected. This is a world where we are all part of. We need to find good common sense solutions for the good of all, and not for nationalistic perspective.
The nationalism is
that makes us
so
special and better, and use that as a reason for us to push others away, or for us to discriminate others, or for us to be, in this case, at the border cruel with other people, specifically with families.
Well, the bottom line is fear is not going to and hurt is not going to help us. In the end, we will lose by cruel. It doesn't work.
In the end, we will. But one of the issues, I'll tell you this. I know we're approaching our end. Our politicians, they are not visionary. They don't think in long term. They're only thinking about winning the election next year, right? So they're thinking about the economy. They're thinking about the grievances of some of the constituency that is maybe most vocal, which is not necessarily the ones that are more civilized or more educated. Or
the loudest voice in the room is not always good.
Right. But the most vocal not necessarily mean the best common denominator. Sometimes it's the people that are angry for different reasons and feel victim and express their anger. So if we listen to that constituency and we're just thinking about the economy and we're just thinking about winning the election next year, then of course we're not going to care about climate change, because that's only going to affect the next generation or maybe our grandsons and granddaughters. But when we think as visionaries, we think in long term, we have a different way of looking at things. So we cannot expect our politicians to be visionaries. We cannot expect our government to solve our problems. All we can do is us as individuals, individually and collectively, as groups and associations, as different entities that we, communities that we come together, do our best to better our lives and the lives of our neighbors. And, like I said, I understand how frustrating it is for some of us that we cannot change immigration policy. But one thing we can all do is just be nice to our neighbors. And if we see, a gardener in our neighborhood, just say, hola, say something in Spanish that is friendly, that allows him to engage and have a conversation. And maybe out of that, we learn some Spanish.
Or even just
today,
just say
bring something to this situation. Treat everyone respectfully and treat everyone equally, regardless of their race, their immigration status, their nationality. And that's what we talk about.
So much, low-hanging fruit that we can do as people. It's kind of funny. I always think to myself, if our politicians were all 1 year only, this would be a changed world, because they're not going to get elected anyway next, so they can actually be not politicians, but be peacemakers and human makers and make change for the world and our nation to be amazing. This nation has so much potential, and that's what hurts me the most. We had a horrific start, and a horrific, with the indigenous people here, and then the slavery. But we don't have to keep doing that. We can change. If only the politicians, right now there's so many laws that are allowing them to be paid off, and we're as corrupt as any nation, and it's out of control. But I always think to myself, have you heard, the story of the sun and the wind? Have you heard it? I don't know what it's called. I'm sure there is a story, a name for it, but called The Story of the Sun and the Wind, and I'm sure you've heard it. I will quickly tell you, and this is if we could somehow, the sun and the wind had a contest. They say, I will see that guy right down there. I will make him take off his jacket. And so the wind just blew and blew and blew and blew, and the guy was clinging to his jacket, and the sun was laughing because the sun said, okay, is it my turn? And he made it hot, and the man took off his jacket because that was good for him. And if we could make things good for people, people won't want to come here, or they'll want to come here and we won't care because we'll be like, okay, sure. There are solutions. We just have to want to do them. I'm hard pressed to believe that we can send a human to the moon and we cannot solve being good to our fellow humans. I don't know, call me cynical. I'm just hard pressed to believe that.
Listen, I agree. I was looking at this documentary about now taking humans to Mars, which, by the way, I think is beautiful. I'm not criticizing that enough. But then again, we're not able to. I mean, this planet that we have is so beautiful, full of so much.
How about our planet, right?
Yeah, and can we really take better care of it so that we don't have to think about going to Mars because this planet is not sustainable and one our species
destroy and move on. Destroy and move on. It's like.
But it's clear that this planet could very well survive without us as a species, as humans. We know that. Yeah. This is actually scientific. If insects would, cease to exist in 7 years, this planet, us, would be gone. Insects. But if human beings would cease to exist in 7 years, this planet would flourish, right? So. Can we realize that we're the caretakers of this planet and that we're here to love one another? This is the core message of all spiritual traditions.
Absolutely.
And just, getting oneness in that clear understanding and educate ourselves that way when we go to school or when we talk, it would make a big difference. So I think it's important that you continue doing your beautiful work, and I applaud you and I appreciate what you do. It's not easy.
Love what you do, so I'm thrilled to do whatever I can to somehow promote. I'm not professional. I'm just me. I just do what I do.
But I love that. Listen, I don't position myself as a scholar or a pundit or of a expert. I mean, I didn't have even the luxury to have a college education, but that does not mean that I cannot be as a human being engaged in many different ways. Filmmaking is one of them. I do other things in life.
Well, you're brilliant at that. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to embarrass you, but I don't know a lot about, but when I see something, I was like, this is, and then when you wrote back to me, I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe it. I was like, laughing to everybody.
This is my first, I have to tell you, although the film has been seen by supposedly more than 1 million people already.
Yes.
Which is great. And by the way, I will remind everyone that if you want to watch a movie you haven't, you can go to AmericanNightmareFilm.com and you can watch it over there on the website.
Once more to make sure it was crystal clear. Can you say that once more?
AmericanNightmareFilm.com. Or you can look for it on Facebook and you can watch it that way as well. But I think that just the fact that we can have these conversations, that we can share our creative work, it's meaningful. I feel honored. I'm very happy right now. I am in a position where I am an American and I can talk about things from the American perspective. But having had that experience of having been an immigrant myself, it really informs my perspective so widely. So I understand not everybody has been as fortunate as I have been, and therefore it's not my responsibility to do something with this fortune of mine to make a difference. This film, we shot it in one day, believe it or not. with money that I had saved to maybe buy a new car. And instead of doing that, I said, let me contribute to this conversation. And it was done with humbleness, but it's making like I said, it's been seen by a lot of people. And I appreciate your support. It's the first
Only going to
interview
get better more and more,
on YouTube about it. And I feel great that you are supporting me so much in this endeavor.
The least I can do. I was just so thrilled. And I know you probably need to run off and do what you're going to do. But I believe in you, and I will follow you, and just tell me what I can do to help. And if you could tell, just for one last question, if you could tell the viewers that are going to watch this eventually after, if you could tell them what to do, what can they do? People want to help. What can they do? Can you give a suggestion?
Yes. Well, I think that you and I have focused a part of our conversation on love, coming from love. And I think that just to re-examine where we come from in anything that we do in life, and see if we can connect with our love source and come from that and stand for something as opposed to be against something, that would be something that I think is important that we can leave. Beyond that, about this particular crisis, listen, I have heard of people trying to send toothpaste and things to these facilities. The reason that these facilities don't have toothpaste is not because they don't have the money, it's because really there is a politic of punishing them, making it difficult so that they can tell others and eventually deter others from coming. So if you want to help, there are many centers, many places where you can help. I'm going to tell you one little anecdote, and I think maybe can help to answer this question. When I made my first film, it was called Not Turning Back. I was invited to a shelter, and when I went to that shelter, it was a center for unaccompanied minors in Los Angeles. Children coming from El Salvador, from Honduras, from Guatemala, and this happened a few years back. I'm talking before Trump, okay? When I arrived to that center, I was asked to present one of my films to the kids. And then the director of the center, Peter Shea, that is a well-known attorney, told me, there is a new kid that just arrived. And they just brought it in. They brought it in from the hospital because apparently he was found at a church where he was asking for food because of the fact that he was a minor. He was reported to the police. And the police took him. He had a big injury, took him to the hospital. They brought him to the shelter. And he said, just talk to this kid because he only speaks Spanish. And after you have done your presentation, if you don't mind, I said, of course. So after I did my little presentation, I shared the film and I talked to the kids. I got to get to know them personally. And I went to this kid and I said, so what is your name? He said, Manuel. Of course, we were talking in Spanish. I said, so Manuel, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me about your family. First thing he told me is, I don't have a family. And I was curious because most of these kids that are coming, unaccompanied minors, they're coming because their parents are so desperate, they're so scared about them, but they're also so poor. They're hoping that maybe they come here and maybe they can become better, right? And when they come, because they have family back there, what they want is they want to work and send money back there to help them out. So normally they have family. So he said, I have a family. So tell me about you. And he said, well, he told me I was an orphan. I was abandoned as a child, as a baby. And I was raised in this orphanage in Ciudad Juarez until I was 8 years old. And at that age, I ran away because I was poorly treated in that public orphanage. And I was living in the streets ever since. And at one point, I was recruited by smugglers. And I was asked to work for them. And they put me to work, me and another friend of mine, as a coyote, helping families cross the border from Ciudad Juarez to El Paso. And I was doing that. But my best friend, he fell in love with the daughter of one of the heads of that mafia thing. And eventually he got killed. And he was so scared. He was so scared that these smugglers, this mafia, these drug dealers, the ones that are really controlling the border, killed his best friend, that he ran away. So when he did his last coyote thing, he stayed in the US. And then eventually he was in Texas. He found a way to get a train and come to Los Angeles. And when he was coming with a freight train, apparently he fell down, and that's when he injured himself. So it's a very sad story. And
Every story I hear is not like exactly like that, but everyone has. People just don't understand. They need to hear these stories.
Yeah. And he told me that his biggest fear would be that he would be sent back to Mexico, because then he would be killed by those people for, So, I mean, talking about people that are very vulnerable. And I said, Manuel, so now that you're in the US, now that you're here, now that you're in this shelter, so what do you want? And he said, what I would like is just a family. And when he said that, it just touched me deeply. And I said, well, Manuel, would you adopt me as your father? And he didn't answer. He didn't say yes or no. He was taken aback, but I gave him my card. And although he didn't call me 2 weeks later, I came back. I went back to this same center. And I saw Manuel over there. I said, Manuel, you didn't call me. How is that? He said, well, I didn't believe you. And I said, no, I meant it. Would you adopt me as your father? And he said, yes. And Manuel is now living with us. He's part of our family.
My God!
He finished high school. He learned English. He got out of his bad habits, because living in the streets, as you can imagine, is not easy. And he's a transformed person. He's really a transformed person. He just left. He actually he works as a truck driver right now. But he is amazing. And he's, right now, he has just bought his first house. So that's how, because now he's grown up. So he's doing great. And the reason he's doing great is not because of me. It's not because of anything. It's because of love. When you give people that opportunity to feel love, they transform themselves. It doesn't matter who they are. I don't care if they are Manuel living in the street, if they are a coyote or a smuggler or a Trump supporter or a progressive. I don't care. When you really come from love and you offer that energy, change happens, even if that happens at that level. So I'm not telling you to tell anybody to adopt a kid. Don't take me wrong. But I'm just saying that I don't know how it's going to happen to you. But what I know for all of you that are listening is if you come from love and you interact from that place with any human being, you will already be making a change and a difference in this conversation about immigration. Because what we need is just, like I said, and what I want to do with this video, is just to awaken our common humanity. We're all human beings. We all can interact with each other from that place of love. And that's how I would say that we can make a difference. No matter if you're an activist, or if you are going to adopt somebody, or if you're just going to talk on TV, or if you are an educator like you and me are. That's, I think, the key at the end of the day, to be able to evolve and to move on to the next level, so that we don't get caught in this polarization that is making us all so angry and upset and creating further division, if you will.
Not even talk much about my personal life, but my husband and I, long ago, 10, 12, 13 years ago, we were told, we said, you know what? We really wanted to have another child. And we decided that we didn't have to have like another duplicate of, us. And so we ended up adopting a little girl, and she's the love of my life. And I don't think, I saved her. She saved me. I needed to have, I needed her. And it's like, people just don't understand how great it feels to be able to be there for somebody in their, in their darkest hour, and then like, just watch them blossom. And it's like, it's a gift. Mm-hmm. And it's such a gift. I just, you almost made me cry when you told me that. It's so awesome. Another thing is raising children. When you raise your children, first and foremost, to understand this is not about politics. It is way more important. It's about being human. And if parents could teach their children, yes, getting good grades is great. And yes, performing in athletics is great. But how about when you walk by the person who doesn't have a home and is sitting there on the street? Do you judge them and say, well, they probably did? No. Teach your children, give what you have to give. And your children will grow up understanding that that's, kind of went overboard. If I pass somebody now, my children will, you didn't give them something. You know, it's like so funny, but it's, we can do this from the bottom up. It's just going to take a lot of people who care an awful lot. So I just can't thank you enough and I can't thank you enough. So I
Thank you.
You're
Gandhi used to say, be the change that you want to see in the world.
Yes.
We could also say, be the love that you want to see in the world.
God, you are amazing.